We have Sara Stewart with the Seer.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Yes.
My Wi-Fi appears to be a little spotty, so if I drop out, I'll drop back in.
Okay. Okay. I understand you're a freelance journalist, and you recently had a article in the Hawkeye. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and tell me
Sure.
what you're finding out after you after the article was published, and some things you might have found out while you were investigating?
Sure. So the article was about a problem that is happening in this unprecedented situation here in Indiana and all over the country, which is that domestic violence is a problem that is getting worse as people are confined to their homes. It's an unusual situation, obviously, for everyone to be essentially in lockdown. And as the executive directors of two local shelters have told me, there are many reasons why domestic violence incidents probably are getting worse, even in areas that aren't seeing a marked increase in hotline calls. This varies from place to place. There are cities that are seeing an increase in hotline calls. There are cities that are seeing an increase in 911 calls. Here in Indiana, the hotline calls at the Alice Paul House and at the Haven shelter in Armstrong County have actually gone down, and that is a source of great concern to the people who work there, because the thinking is that victims of domestic abuse are not able to reach out for services the way they would have been able to under normal circumstances. And that's, the number one reason for that is just that they're sheltered in place with their abuser and unable to find the time and the space to get help the way that they would have.
Are you finding, you said here locally that the domestic violence cases or calls have gone down? I know we talked with the executive director, and not just there, we also talked to the executive director of the care center, also with children that are being abused or neglected this time as well. And their fear was that when all of this ends, there will be a surge, simply because the doors open back up, and people that all people that were abused, whether they're older people or children, any family members, they'll have the avenues again to go back out into the community and to report more. Did you find out anything about that, or what's happening, or the preparation that's being made for that once the community is allowed to reopen?
Well, I think one of the concerns is that people aren't aware that services are currently available to them. I think that the thinking is that people don't know that shelters are open. People don't know that it's still possible to apply for protection from abuse order. People don't know even that hotlines necessarily are being staffed the way that they were. So I think part of the really crucial step right now is to get information out that these services are still available to people right now, and that there are ways of preparing, making a safety plan, as is the language in that community, making a safety plan for getting help from your situation, which is actually currently available. But I do think there will be a real problem, like you said, when our doors all do open up, and there may be a real bottleneck of applications for PFAs. There may be a surge of people wanting to get into shelters that don't have that many rooms to offer. So I think that it's really important, and in my article, there's a sidebar at the bottom that has some information that people can access about what they can do now to reach out for help and to safety plan, even if you're in a situation where you're at home in a dangerous situation. You can potentially work out ways with a friend, a neighbor, to work on getting help for yourself now, and not having to, shelter with someone who is dangerous. One of the people I interviewed for my story was Detective Sergeant Jeffrey Atherton from the Indiana Police Department, who told me that although there hasn't been a surge of there haven't been a surge of domestic violence incidents, but the incidents that they're getting calls for are more severe. And the reason he said they're getting more severe is that, you know, as you might expect, there are a lot of additional stresses. People are financially stressed, they're psychologically stressed. There are a lot of sort of things we've never seen before, kind of all converging in ways that are really ratcheting up the strain in a home that might already have been seeing a lot of strain. And this is erupting in really dangerous ways for a lot of victims who may not know that they can get out. I mean, they may still think the safest place to be is at home.
So the organizations, I know the two here, Alice Paul House and Haven, or what did you find out about funding for their organizations right now? Are they able to stay afloat? Or is there any stimulus money for these programs? I know that they're non-for-profit, and with the small business loans, nonprofits were included with that, but now we're hearing there's no money. So are you hearing anything about, you know, how are they able to keep going, far as like the homeless shelters and things like that they're connected with?
I did not hear about the funding in particular, although no one told me that there was no money available. What I was told was that their services are still available, that they are, Audia Boyles, who's the executive director of the Alice Paul House, told me that her employees are still there, their advocates available. She said, we are basically status quo. So I think that the funding that they get is still, as far as I can understand it, they're still getting the funding that they get, and are available to offer services to people who are able to reach out for it.
Wonderful. So just to recap, so their funding is fine. They're still offering the same services. I know when they came on last week, and then we had another guest the week before that, they said they have the same services they had before the COVID-19 restrictions were on, were put out for the general public, and that they're still operating. So if someone is in need of their services, they can call the hotline number, and there will be somebody there to help them. Yes?
Yes, that's right. But I think it's also important for everyone in our community really to pay attention to this, not just the people who are experiencing domestic violence. I think it's really important in this community. As we were saying, we're so lucky to live in a community that's so caring and so connected. And I think that at this time, we really need to be extra careful of looking out for our friends and our neighbors, and making sure that we are sort of aware of the signs of what might be a problematic situation for someone you know. And if that's the case, maybe reaching out to them with a text message or a phone call, and just letting them know, there are ways, I could be available to you. We could work out a code word. We could work out a system where you put a lamp in a certain window, and that tells me that you're not okay and you need me to call 911. So there are very concrete ways that we can all get involved and take care of people in the community who may be in dangerous situations.
Well, thank you for your work. It's very important work, and great information that you're getting out to the public. Can you tell us what else you're following right now?
What else am I following right now? I'm looking into what's going on in White's Woods. Actually, that's my new area of focus, is the future of our lovely White's Woods.
Okay.
I will
And
leave it
there's
at
some forestry things going on. Yes.
There are. Yes, there are. I'm curious to hear more about those forestry things.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on today. We appreciate all the work that you're putting in, and the information that you're sending out to the general public. Thank you so much. Can you come back sometime?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Center Webcast. This is episode 10. We're going to wrap up here a little bit. Looking at our Facebook live feed, I don't see any live questions. However, I did have a follow-up question for Representative Struzzi, and it's in particular about masks and about personal protective equipment. With the new governor's order, where places like Lowe's and Giant Eagle and other places that have been open are essential, my understanding is the new governor's order is going to require employees there to be wearing masks, at least the cloth kind, and also be requiring customers who come in to also be requiring them to wear these masks. Am I right? Is that your understanding of the new governor's order?
I believe it is, yes, Gerald. And I should preface, though, I think that a lot of the governor's orders, just like the stay-at-home order, are recommendations. I don't know that there will be an enforcement component to that, at least not yet. So I think it's more of a measure to, and it makes sense to ensure the safety of those who are, out there working to provide our essential products and services. And I think it's, behooving of the general public to do the same to protect the safety of those people who are out there, making, our lives livable by working in the grocery stores and working in those essential businesses that provide our life-sustaining products. So I think, that's the message that the governor is sending. That is the order that he issued yesterday or late yesterday. But again, I think it's just a very good recommendation for people to follow.
So the understanding is similar to the other recommendations is we shouldn't expect a heavy enforcement, but it's just, this is best medical practice and what we're recommending here.
Exactly, yes.
So I guess my other question, and I'm not sure if there is a good answer to this, but we've been kind of following the mask making here in town.
Right.
And what it seems like is that it's not necessarily a funding piece. There's just not enough masks to meet the demand. We see it on a lot of different places. Folks are saying this nursing home needs this many masks. And so you'll see somebody say, oh, I can make those 10. And then
Right.
There's another one that needs some, and I can make those 10. And it seems like we have an incredible army, again, this incredible army of mask makers. There's even a mask making group, I think it's called the Masketeers, which is super clever, but
Yeah.
They're all at capacity, right? All these wonderful folks who are at home making masks are back ordered. Folks who have businesses who are selling them are also back ordered. How do we end up being able to hand out this kind of equipment, say, for example, at ICAP? It seems like it would make sense that if folks drive up and pick up a food box at ICAP or go to Chevy Chase and pick up a lunch, they should also have the opportunity to maybe pick up one of these cloth masks. And what we're hearing is they're just not enough. Is there a way to provide those here locally? I mean, I assume this will be happening all over.
And to make them available to the people who need them. I think one of the things you have to clarify, though, is the different types of masks. You have the masks that are in the clinical setting, in the hospitals, to protect the workers, the people on the front lines, the medical professionals. Those are the N95 masks. The other masks are more designed to protect the people that you're encountering when you're out in public. Not necessarily, and they say even, the cloth masks that people are wearing, or even a handkerchief over your face, that's more to protect people that you could come into contact with. So they're not filtering all the particles that are in the air. That's more the clinical masks, I think. And those are the ones that are really in demand, the PPE for the medical professionals that are treating COVID patients and others in the clinical setting, in the hospital setting. So I think that's the difference. The masks that we wear out in the public, and it's basically just to prevent you from, spreading something to someone that you encounter in the grocery store. And I think in that case, that's where you're seeing a lot of people from the public step up and create masks out of, common materials, fabrics and things like that. But those certainly wouldn't be the same as what you're seeing at IRMC for the medical professionals treating COVID patients.
Right. I'm just looking at our comments. The Indigo bus service has said that you are required to have a mask to ride the bus. I guess it's concerning, right? If somebody is riding the bus, it's possible they don't have the means to pick up a mask, and so is it I guess how do we relieve that? How do we address the fact that a lot of low-income folks, people moving around who are going to be wanting to wear them, they're not there?
Well, I think it's behooving of everyone to try and, practice the best that you can as far as safety. Be respectful to others who are around you. Especially, it makes sense on an Indigo bus where you're in confined spaces with other people. I think you want to do everything you can. And as I said, any type of covering right now is considered effective. A handkerchief, a bandana, anything that you can use to cover anything, to prevent that flow of germs from being exchanged to another person. Everybody can make a mask out of something. I think an old T-shirt, the materials, and there's plenty of recipes for masks. Step-by-step instructions on Facebook or on the internet. And I think a little bit of string and a little bit of cloth, and you can create a mask. But really, it becomes it's our responsibility as good citizens to protect those around us and not spread those germs to other people.
I think the phrase I've been hearing is my mask protects you from me and your mask protects me from you, I think is the.
Yeah. And I really think that the overarching message is that people need to take it seriously. That's, I think, the real motivation behind the governor's order is, look, you have to take this seriously. We don't want to see it spread any further. Interactions are fine as long as we're practicing these proper social distancing, proper CDC guidelines. Be smart.
Regarding the masks and Indigo, I'm getting some messages from online for a lot of folks who go to the Chevy Chase Center are riding public transport. And some of them, it seems, have been told that they should be wearing a mask to get on, but it does not seem per Indigo that this is being enforced unilaterally. So I know that Chevy Chase has asked for some masks if we can get those to them so the people who have to come every day by public transport could continue to wear those. So that's one place to direct all of the masks that we're making at home.
I feel like we're on this stage of everybody should be met. It's going to be those days that we all stayed home and we made masks together. Let's wrap up here. This is Center Radio, Center Webcast. This is episode 10. Sybil, what's coming up? We've got some people confirmed for next week. What are you thinking about?
We do. We have quite a few people actually confirmed for next week. We're excited to have them on as well. We have our director of our local emergency management coming on, Tom Stutzman. He's going to talk a little bit about PPE, some of the things we were talking about today as far as masks. So very good questions that I think everyone had today on the show as far as the transit workers with their mask and people that are supposed to be on the bus, and what are we going to do as general public with that. We have Mike Vukovic coming back. He's the superintendent of Indiana Area School District. There's been some changes with curriculum and some expectations both from parents, students, and the district as well. So we're going to hear a little bit from him. One of our hometown heroes, David Alturidge, who is making the covers for our nurses and our doctors and healthcare workers. Alice Paulhouse. We have a representative from the Attorney General's office coming, and Dr. Malika Turner from IUP to talk a little about what's going on in higher education.
Fantastic. So that's all coming up next week. Once again, we are every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m., Sundays at 2. That's episode 10. Thank you, all of our guests. Thank you for coming. Thank you much. That's a wrap for us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gerald. Thanks, Sybil.